All right, cool. I'm live now too. All right, well, hey, how's everyone doing?
Hey there.
Yeah, well, I'll give you all a chance to
Ooh.
introduce yourselves real quick, and if you want to shout yourselves out, Wick, do you want to go first?
Sure, Wick TV on all platforms. You invited me to talk Alien Romulus. I saw the movie. I thought it was good. Here we are.
All right, Vincent.
Vincent Martin. I'm not a YouTuber. In fact, I might be anti-YouTuber at this rate, but I like to have fun on the internet and try to strive for somewhat of objective, at least trying to understand things from from an objective or a correct whatever sort of viewpoint. Just the more information you have on any subject matter, I think it's good, and I just do whatever I want with that.
I hear you're a fence-sitting centrist.
That's what I hear. I like the term radical centrist, but that's more from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Radical. That's more of the radical style I'm going for.
Okay, airplay doc.
If I may share my screen right here, I'm I go by the name Airplay Doc. That's because I've got a documentary called Airplay, which you can watch the first part on YouTube at Airplay Doc. It is about the Society of Professional Journalists Gamergate discussion held in August 15th of 2015. It received 10 bomb threats in a single day and was not reported on by any of the by received virtually zero national media attention. You can watch the second part on my Patreon at Metalhead Motion Pictures at patreon.com/metalheadfilms.com. I'm currently raising a crowd. I'm currently crowdfunding for further promotion and distribution of the film. Recently released a single called Gamers Are Dead, which you can listen to on many major media music retailers. And on the X Twitter app, I am at AirplayDoc.
Okay, all right. Well,
Oh.
we know what Wick thinks.
Did you?
Do you two? Go ahead, Vincent.
Oh, I was just gonna say, did you enter? Is 10 bomb threats like a Guinness World Record? Maybe you should enter into that. Okay, like most bomb threats.
Let's
Just
let's
saying.
try to
Just
keep the
saying.
GG discussion to like a nil if possible.
Yeah.
Fair
Keep it
enough.
focused on the movie if we can. All right.
Mhm.
Well, hey, we know what Wick thinks. He said it's pretty good. I agree. Pretty good. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite Alien films. I don't know if I think it's one of my third favorite, I have to say. But
So
I'll,
behind Alien and Aliens, so
I
you
think
rank it as
so.
third.
I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. From going into it, from what I heard, it did very little original, but it did it very well. It it's pretty much going through much of the same plot as it's pretty much going through much of the same plot as the first movie, but some with some minor alterations. And overall, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I'll say it really impressed me in the very beginning. Okay, yeah, I practically found it to be flawless until it got into the action sequence. Then it sort of hurt my head in a couple of places with a couple of decisions they made. So
Yeah, there was
yeah,
one particular decision near the end that Tachyon,
yeah,
I immediately asked you about it right after
You did, yeah.
watching it. Yeah, and because it's a choice that just comes out of nowhere.
Also, there will be spoilers if you're watching, by the way, so feel free to spoil away. So what you asked me about, Raymond, you asked me about why did Kay inject herself with the black goo? Which at first I'm like, when I first saw that scene, I'm like, oh my god, what a stupid decision. But
Yeah,
I think it kind of makes sense. I mean, because she probably
yeah.
didn't think she was gonna make it.
So yeah, she didn't think that he was gonna make it. It's only that the movie did not give us any indication that she knew what the compound was, or the or knew if it was dangerous, or knew if what its potential knew what its potential was, or it just comes out of nowhere with no indication that she
Well, that
knew
was more
anything about it.
believable in my opinion than other things. How did Andy fall down in that engine scene? Okay.
Yeah, I still don't
Was
know.
he attacked? Did that? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, why is he just? He's not attacked. He's just sort of arriving there. Did the weird Rook guy put something? I didn't understand his decisions at the end. The Rook character, but
Well, so as I
hey,
understand it, right, like the whole, since we're spoiling here, so the whole premise, just to kind of maybe give people an overview, is that
at least not.
they are on a planet that is a part of the Wayland Company, Wayland
Yeah, Wayland
Corporation, I
Yutani.
think. Yeah, Wayland Yutani Corporation. It's a corporate planet. Think old school miners, okay, where they're going in, they are on the company store, they're building up debt, and they have to work a certain number of hours to get off planet, to
I
get out of their
didn't
contract.
hear any whistling from the workers. Such a
No
shame.
whistling. No whistling. It's true. They weren't the
Well,
dwarves. The
plenty of
740.
bad dad jokes. I approve of that.
Sure. But the whole premise is she tries to get out of her contract. She's done the way she's gone in the proper way. She did her hours, but they raised her hours on her. Then her buddies come in, right? Fellow young workers. It sounds like they're kids from
Yeah,
the of some
that's
sort.
something that was different
Those are the
about this.
toughs.
That was different about this Alien movie compared to all the other. Is that the cast looked surprisingly young.
Well, yeah, the
It
whole
was
point was,
like
And
yeah.
Alien, the
and
new
impressive
class.
and impressively talented. I never know if it's just the director able to control the actors or if the actors are just that good. Probably the worst actress in that was the star, and that's not actually insult. I just think the level of acting was so amazing that the lead sort of sometimes it could have been her character also. I want to point that out because I thought the acting was phenomenal. But it
Well,
could have been the
most of the
director.
cast was pretty standard horror.
Well, what was your
Was
favorite
pretty
acting
much
scene in the movie?
well
Let's be
pretty
more specific.
standard. Well,
Probably for
I
me,
was I
Andy,
was gonna say
David
that.
Johnson, David Johnson's
Yeah,
character. I think
definitely.
throughout
The
the
switch
throughout the film,
between
yeah, this
Yeah,
was between when he was controlled by the chip versus when he was himself.
yeah.
It's great.
He has to pretend to have like two completely different personalities, and he pulled that off really well. I was gonna say that the cast was standard horror movie cannon fodder or meat fodder.
but with a
Or
twist.
So, do you consider
I
it a
agree.
horror movie or an action?
A mix of both, I think.
It switches. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
So I like
They
the
have the
switch.
action mode.
It's like
well,
it's sort
the
of like
difference
a
between
mix between like Alien and Aliens, like something in between.
Yeah,
well,
Alien
the
would I
thing
consider horror. I consider Alien a straight horror movie. Aliens was an action movie.
Yeah, I agree.
well, the difference between action and horror is pretty much just the whether or not you are relying upon suspense or whether or not it's a kind of you're just paying attention to the like dance of movement, the choreography, whatnot, that and how they move through the scene. In my view, there are two kinds of action sequences. There are dance and there's suspense. There's one where you are anticipating, where the director has set up a situation where where the characters seek an outcome, and whether or not they achieve that outcome, or and then there's
Yes.
dance where
Execution.
yeah, where they're just what's that?
I was just saying about the execution. You can
Yeah,
sometimes tell about the build up and you can respect something for attempting. There's a lot of moments which I think the term's called lampshading. It's like
yeah,
a couple of moments in there where it's like that seems a little contrived, but they set it up just in the right way. I'm sure someone who's not looking for the flaws of this movie, as I did when I went in, not that it dispelled that. The sort of I can sort of do it on two different levels if I'm at the thing. I was looking for flaws, and I couldn't find it in the beginning until that action sequence at the end, which was set up by a whole bunch of minor contrivances.
Yeah.
We went over the sort of one where he just falls, Andy falls down. There was also the whole, they could have cut it a lot more if the main character would have just shoved the woman right back into the cryo thing. I'm like, why are you letting her out? Why are you doing this? She's in a cryopod.
Well, I'm not
Put her
sure.
back in.
I'm not sure it would have let her because it had that error message.
Yeah, that seems incredibly convenient. Okay, as I said, a contrivance. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like.
Well, no.
Yeah, I don't know if like the cryotubes like should operate that way because like in theory like it should be like an emergency life saving thing, right?
Yeah.
So like, if your vitals are critical, you probably.
Yeah, but it's designed, as I understand, for humans. Given that it had something inhuman in it, this is one of those things where like I don't. It's something that doesn't exist. It's entirely made up. I'm not sure, but it seems to work under its own internal logic, right? The movie logic, things like that. It didn't seem inconsistent with that, so I didn't have a problem with it.
Okay.
That's just me.
One thing I really liked, going back to the beginning, is that they spent so much time building up like the lore too, and adding a lot to the lore, like the planet Jackson Star. Like you mentioned, it was like this dystopian planet where they're basically working for this like company town essentially in space, where they can't really leave unless the company allows them to, and the company doesn't really keep its word. It's a really
the company has a monopoly on the one thing that will allow for space travel, right? And they utilize that monopoly to keep the people, even the children of the people who sign their contracts, on planet working for them. And they, again, bait that hook. I think it does paint the corporation as sinister in a way that people can understand beyond I'm just doing science for science's sake. I think the whole portrayal of Rook even and the androids and how they operated and how they worked on that corporate level, I think really worked in the movie. I think it played into the atmosphere in a very well way that I think kind of, again, pushed the movie from good to great, in my opinion. Again, as you mentioned, the difference between how he acted when he was kind of this malfunctioning droid, this malfunctioning cyborg, and when he received his upgrades that fixed it, and how it transitioned him from being a relatable kind of little brother guy to what he actually was, which is a cold-hearted logic machine. I think that was very well done, phenomenally well done, how they showed the difference between an android and a human.
And the foreshadowing of his decision later when he becomes the cold, hard android later. And they worked it into the script. Why does he have a problem with Andy here? Oh, someone made a call. I thought they couldn't actually do that. The way they worked that sort of a bit of lore into the movie, I thought was rather brilliant, and how that sort of gets brought up later when you're like, okay, why is this android who's programmed not to kill? Because the Rook guy took control of him and convinced him that this was the best path. Even though he said 60-40 for the one girl who first got infected. I thought that was definitely a great bit of writing within it.
Yeah, and as someone who plays... Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. I talk a lot.
As someone who plays the RPG, the Alien RPG, the 60-40 thing is really interesting. Also, I think it's really cool how when the character got infected, when Navarro got infected, with the facehugger, they actually were like pretty smart and came up with like an actual plan to get it off of her. That theoretically could have worked, I guess. It's like a 60-40 chance, but like I think that's actually really interesting to show that the characters aren't just like, one of the problems I had with Covenant was that all the characters were fucking idiots, and that they all basically just got themselves killed.
Same thing.
Sometimes that can make for a good show. Do you guys ever watch The 100? One of the charms of that show is how at any episode there's someone making a really bad decision, and that switches off.
That would annoy the hell out of me.
No, it's fun because you know what's
Oh.
happening. But I get what you're saying about Covenant. Is it didn't have that charm to it.
Yeah,
And in this
though.
one, they aren't making
Yeah.
bad decisions though. Like everyone seems to be acting at least somewhat in a reasonable manner. Now we know it's a bad decision to go into that room with the alien stuffs and have it heat up because we know what something the character does not. But it's a difference between when you do know what the character knows and they know what you know and they're still making a decision you think is the stupidest decision you've ever made. I think the
How would they know
scene
there were aliens there, though?
well,
Go
they
on.
didn't. Well, they didn't. That's why there
Well, they
wasn't
didn't.
a.
Yeah, they didn't at the time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Now they found that out later, right? But
Yeah.
I think that the interaction when you had them trying to open the door to save that girl. Okay, there's a door, and she was begging to get out, and they're begging the android, the only one who can open the door, to let her out to save her because again, the alien's been attacking, been killing people. They want to save her. Her friends want to save their friends, and the android refuses and refuses because he sees the alien waiting for them to do that. And he knows that if he opens the door, that not only will she die, but the other people that he's with will die as well. And I think that's a good showcase of how human emotion can actually be a bad thing, and the wanting to save your friends can actually be a bad thing that there needs to be limitations on. And I think that's a good moral question. That's one of the reasons I love the movie, is because it raises moral questions. It raises interesting dilemmas that are fun to kind of play out and think
Well,
about.
in a
You
way,
can have reasonable decisions on that.
it is kind of a reversal of some similar thing that occurred in the first move in the original Alien movie by Ridley Scott, the '79 Alien movie, where uh, where John Hurt first gets hit by the face hugger, and they are trying to get him back on the ship, and Ripley is not allowing them to get back onto the ship, or else it would because that alien is unknown and it might infect everybody else on the ship. But John Hurt, as the android, lets everybody. And John Hurt, as the android, makes the choice. He used to open the door and let everybody in. That spoilers for people who haven't seen Alien before, but John Hurt is the android in that movie, and he was working for the corporation
Bishop,
the
I
whole
believe.
time. And yep,
No, Bishop was aliens.
Oh, okay.
He's
Sorry.
talking about Ash, I guess.
yeah, Ash.
Okay.
And they use the android's the
John
same
Hurt.
model as Ash's too, which is pretty cool. Rook is.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
deep
I
faked
thought so.
John Hurt, who is dead. John, who is dead, is they deep faked his face on Rook for Rook on this movie,
Yeah,
and
that was a little disconcerting. I mean, I sort of liked it, but it was very disturbing. Okay, I respect the decision still.
oh,
Did
and
you like
in the credits you can see that
Go ahead.
in the credits you can see that they thanked the uh family, and his name might not be John Hurt, is it?
Let's not get bogged down by
Yeah,
trying to
that's not.
remember names. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
liked a
the
lot of
original
those
actor
elements.
who played Ash.
I mean,
Ian
I
Holm.
believe he
definitely
died a
good
few
homage.
years ago.
Always
I'm
sad.
being told Ian Holm played Ash, not
Oh
John,
yeah, Ian
but
Holm.
I
Yeah,
could be wrong. Chatters are
well,
off.
yeah.
And
W for the
Chatter's
chat.
often troll.
So you were talking about earlier. You talking about why did Kay inject herself? They didn't. She didn't know what it did. But there was a scene, I believe, actually, when they're in the hallway with all the facehuggers that had already impregnated the space station people, the people who worked there, where they do talk about how it worked on the rat. And remember, I think Tyler tells her to inject it, but then Rain says no, because
Yeah, safer to get
Yeah.
her to the cryopod. Okay, that's what makes her going
No, that
back for
was
Andy a little annoying.
yeah.
I'm like, get her to the pod. what's going to happen? I don't know.
Well,
Sorry.
this,
Yeah, and
well, they were going to
gave-
crash into the rings, so they were on
But as Wick
limited
brought
time.
up, it's like a moral dilemma. Do you go? You know she's probably going to be safe, which she wasn't because she was already really hurt. Okay, would have been more probably safer to lead her up and get her into the cryopod and maybe come back for Andy later. They do
Yeah.
establish she has a unhealthy attachment to her android because of the connection to her father. It is sort of mitigated by that factor, but
Sure.
still bothered me in the end.
As I
But
understand,
moral dilemma.
as I
yeah,
understand it,
for her to go back for Andy, that was one part that felt very contrived. That
For the
yeah,
action.
and yeah, as it was getting into the third act, the number of contrivances is kind of
what do you guys mean by contrived? Because I'm struggling.
It
Her
seems
going
like a
back for
decision
Andy
that
and
doesn't make sense. Okay, like I didn't understand why Rook all suddenly like wouldn't open the door.
and
Okay,
that
maybe it's explained.
yeah, and that
So hold
as
on.
you were going, as you were talking about the just how I felt like the attempts to make the Wayland Yutani Company seem extra evil in this movie just kind of hit a wall of logic. They're now
Sure.
evil to the point where it no longer that it doesn't
Was
logically
logical.
make sense.
Well,
But he was a broken down robot, so that's what makes it somewhat
Well,
very damaged robot.
I like that she went back because she viewed him like throughout the whole film. She refers to him as her brother.
yeah, this was
Yeah.
foreshadowed
Yeah.
for the beginning. Like to say it was contrived.
I know.
mean, only in the sense that the scriptwriters obviously made it happen because they're scriptwriters. This isn't natural; it's all made up. But the whole idea,
Yeah.
that the whole point of the movie was her relationship with the android. That was one of the major through lines of the movie was how she treated the android and how she viewed him
Yeah.
as a brother and as a family. And that's one of the points of tension through the film, how she feels betrayed by him and things like that. But again, we see the
that kind of
dichotomy
picture-
here because, again, if I may finish,
Yeah.
we see throughout the movie that it's revealed that she was going to leave him behind out of necessity, because
Yes,
when they were
guilt.
going in, they were going to a planet that didn't allow androids. So she was going to abandon him. And then she has the gall to feel like he abandoned her. And he points that out in the movie. Like, oh, we're going to leave. She makes a quip, and I forget the exact words, about how dare you abandon us and leave us behind. And then he looks at her and like, yes, leaving people behind? I wouldn't know anything about that, right? And it's just a clear call to this. So the fact that she goes back for him, I don't think is contrived at all. I think it's a resolving of a issue that was raised throughout the movie by the plot, by the dialogue, by the character interaction. The question that needed to be answered was, does she actually care, or should she actually care about an android who is not a human? And they resolved that after the tension, after the combat, the conflict, etc. It was resolved in favor of, yes, she did actually care about this robot, and she did value him much like a human, and she went back for it. I don't think that was contrived at all.
It's more
Yeah,
about
so-
how he fell down. It wasn't explained properly why he just started spazzing out. It forced her to make that decision. That's more the contrivance staff.
Yeah, but I thought maybe I looked away or blinked or something and I missed something because I'm like, why is he
Yeah.
on the ground all of a sudden? I didn't.
I don't
I
remember.
mean, maybe if I watched it a second time around, maybe I will catch it. Maybe it was just way too quick to understand that. And most people won't catch it, okay?
Or like the reason could be like that Rook didn't think that he would be useful to them anymore, which is also like maybe why he didn't open the door
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Well,
I
the
didn't
door
understand
thing, if
that.
I'm remembering that correctly, is because if I remember, they didn't open the doors because the stuff that he cared about that Rook wanted, the serum or the black goo or whatever, was already going to somewhere safe. And if he opened the door, the aliens could, again, much like, and it's a callback to when I forget his name, the black android, did not open the door, because if he'd opened the door, it would endanger everyone else and the other people that he cared about. And
Oh,
Rook was
Andy.
just
I posted all the names
Andy.
in the group
Thank you.
chat, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Andy, right? Andy, the android, um, foreshadows this decision and foreshadows the decision of not opening the door. And when Rook refuses to open the door, it's for similar logic and similar reasons. And so we can see the dichotomy of the logic playing out. In one instance, it makes sense, right? And we're like, oh, okay, this is kind of altruistic-ish. But in another instance, it's very sinister. And the difference is who or what is trying to be protected. And in the case of Rook, he was trying to protect the goo stuff. In the case of Andy, he's trying to protect the people.
Can we start calling it
Yeah,
the
I could s-
compound,
I
because
could-
I don't like calling it goo.
Goo. The
It is.
moist
It is
goo.
black goo. That's the canon.
Okay. As for that, I mean, all that makes sense. It's all reasonable logic to go with that. It just seemed like it was to force her to go against the aliens and have a rather cool ass sort of sequence where they're worried about the acid blood, so they turn off the gravity. It's all very nicely done. How that scene's depicted and how
Yeah.
it's done.
Though I do
I
recall that the whole that concept of turning off the gravity so the acid blood doesn't affect, so that the acid blood doesn't get through the hull is something that has been kind of thought about in alien fan circles and discussed. Like the same thing with freezing the base of the facehugger's tail so it doesn't choke uh so that it doesn't choke the host.
And
Also,
one
if I've
thing
And-
too
heard
to
criticism-
so Rook tells Andy that his new directive is to do what's in the best interest of the company, and that's presumably what Rook's operating under as well. So I think it makes sense that Rook actually not only does he not want the aliens to go and attack the K, who's carrying the black goo, but also he probably doesn't necessarily want them to live unless they're useful to him, because like presumably it would be bad for the company if this came out. If this became public knowledge that they were working on these space station, they work on this space station with these creatures and breeding them and creating them and killing people.
Yeah,
Essentially.
but again, so evil that it's logically incoherent. Why not just have them?
As I
Why not
said,
just have them
broken.
survive with the compound?
What
Well,
what makes that actually work is because Rook is damaged. Okay, I think that's what makes the illogical moments towards the end much more believable. It's still because it seemed to, as far as when I was watching it, it almost seemed like it was more contrived moments to have really cool action sequence, which I bravo for how they did that sort of acid thing and her going badass with that rifle, whatever it was called. I like that. Okay, probably homage to several different things within the series.
Though they established before that the uh a pulse rifle is aim assisted, so it's really doing that automatically.
Yeah, we all know women
Hey,
can't
don't
really shoot
diminish
in the
her.
end.
Don't diminish her power. Don't diminish her skill.
Here, I mean, I just, I don't know. Like, I think that it's logically consistent, the actions that Rook takes. Again, it's clear throughout the movie that the company does not value these people at all. Like, you can say that's cartoonishly evil, and kind of, but it is, it's just the setting is people are commodities to be used and thrown away.
Yeah, that is a
And
common
Wayland,
trope in these type of things.
well, and
it's
that's
a, yeah,
that's established
it's a
throughout the whole
cliche.
film too. Like even in the very beginning, when she's denied transit off the planet, and when they're obviously the miners are obviously getting very very sick and dying, like her parents, and apparently some of the other people's parents as well. Like clearly the company does not give a shit.
Clearly, the people working for the company. When she went to that one place, it said, "Oh yeah, you have the hours." That woman literally just probably had the order to double it if someone comes and asks to get the release.
They were probably said to stop. It's a stop loss. Remember, in the military, right? You'd get stop loss if your time was up. It's basically that.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is just because of someone's kid. You were born. I mean, that's the way it seemed. You were
It's
born on
serfdom,
there.
yeah.
You still need to put in the hours.
If you're on the planet,
That's
them's the rules.
And I do like the gravity
uh,
too. I think the gravity in the very beginning, I'm like, okay, how is this going to play into it? I was thinking throughout the film, but I think they actually did really well with that whole action sequence.
It
And
was Chekhov's
Yeah,
gun, yeah,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
when the
I haven't
pregnancy
seen
too.
it. Yeah,
True.
I haven't seen all of the. The only Alien movie I haven't seen is Covenant. But is this the first one that I think that this may be the first one that actually uses anti-gravity as a plot point?
yeah,
I
they used it really well. I'll admit
Yeah.
that. Set it up correctly. Used it for several different points. One
I
to
got
sort
it.
of
Yeah,
smash
go
the
ahead.
ass of that one guy, that one jackass. But he was understandable why he was such a pain in the ass. And a lot of the things that he calls were completely believable, completely set up correctly. You're like, God damn, this character's going to cause so much trouble. And yep, he did.
So my
What
major
was it?
criticism with the
Go on.
movie, actually, is I didn't like. I don't know. It felt too 80s ish. How the aliens looked and how they're moved. There's something off about it to me. Um, it felt. I don't know if they just did a different technique for how they use the animatronics or the CGI or whatever, but it felt it was in direct kind of it felt out of place when the rest of the movie was very slick, very graphically well done, well put together, everything. But the aliens themselves were it just felt off. And I'm not talking about the ending alien. The ending alien was very well done, but the in aliens in the tunnel and just the alien in general, it didn't. I don't know. There was something about it that was like something stuck in my teeth. That's all.
And I have to disagree because the aliens and that's probably why. That's probably the reason you feel that is because the aliens in this movie. From what I hear, Freddie Alvarez said whenever we resorted to practical effects whenever we had the ability to do so. So you could like tell that all the aliens were inside the room with the actors, on stage with the actors was happen as it was happening. And the ending alien, that this is going to be a spoilers, that kind of alien human hybrid thing. Not only did it result from a plot contrivance that I feel wasn't set up very properly, but it didn't. But compared to H.R. Giger's design, it was just not very. It was
You can just say
just didn't.
okay. You can just call it bad. Call a spade a spade. Okay.
I
I
like
meant
the body
I thought
horror
it
of
was
it. I don't know. I like the whole body horror aspect of it.
I mean,
yeah.
H.R. Geiger's design. It's just comes up whenever they try to add something that's not derived from H.R. Geiger's original design. Is that H.R. Geiger's design is just so unique and iconic, and everything else from it and any kind of derivative they try to make just looks so
Yeah,
it just looks
uncanny.
like
You're
a
probably getting an
yeah.
uncanny valley effect. It looks so similar to something you really respect, but off in a weird way. It's the
Yeah.
probably the uncanny valley effect.
That's
Similar,
not
but
really the uncanny valley effect. That's
yeah,
when
sorry. I use
something
terms
looks
in a weird way.
looks extremely human but is just off a little bit, that it just feels uncanny.
I really
This effect is just like people trying to imitate H.R. Geiger, but in a way that doesn't leave much of an impression.
I liked the alien design in this. I thought they looked good, so I'll disagree with you there. But maybe if I go back and watch it again, I'll see things differently. But one thing I thought that was interesting was like from like a filmmaking perspective, I think it looked good, but there were so many sequences where like the aliens are like moving relatively like slow, and maybe that's because they're like in slow mo filming it, like basically showing like a slow motion, like in the like when they're moving in the corridor, chasing Andy and Rain. It seemed like they were just moving slow, and then when they're crawling in the up top, when the wind pulls Tyler up, it just seemed like they were like moving slow, but it looks good. I can tell like why they did that, and like it's like they're not gonna act right away and kill them. It builds suspense for the viewer. So I think like from a filmmaking perspective, it looks really well. But it's not really what I expect like from playing a lot of Alien video games, where there's like constantly trying to kill you at all times.
Well, that needs to be a challenge. They can't really set up things properly. Plus, the aliens in this context, there's way so many. I did like the fact that they utilized face huggers. I mean, have they done this before? I can't remember the previous Alien movies, but just the army of face huggers, I thought was a really cool concept. That has previous Aliens had that sort of thing with the face huggers?
Not in the movies. I guess wait, we did Alien. Did the fourth movie Resurrection have a bunch of facehuggers in it?
I put that movie out of my head.
We don't talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It
And
might have.
though what was interesting was just with the face huggers in this one was just how they used the what would you call, I guess you would call it the face huggers prospect proboscis, which it was just the way it was trying to, there's no real elegant way to say this, but deep throat the crew. That
Oh,
you could
okay.
that
Very nice.
the one scene where one of the characters is just keeping the face hugger just an inch away from his face, and his proboscis is just
Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah,
did like
its
the
way
fact they
around
didn't
his
get
jaw.
hit with the
they
face
really
huggers.
played
They
into the
fought.
sexual nature of these
Yeah.
things, and the allegory for rape was one of the themes.
Yeah,
of the first
and when
Alien.
they take
They
off
really played into it for this one.
yeah,
Yeah.
and should we talk about the way that they? Because was that a okay? Was that a did they add a cocoon stage to the Aliens original uh metamorphosis cycle? Because that what it's not it's kind of hard to avoid. It looks like a vagina. And when I saw this, there was a couple in front of me, and when they saw it, immediately the lady started giggling because
Yeah, truly a good toy. He tried to destroy the alien with.
and
That wasn't a great thing.
well, and
Oh.
one person I follow on Letterboxd, and I follow Cat Eckers, the YouTube content creator on Letterboxd. It's a movie reviewing app. And his review for this movie was just one sentence that mentioned the acid vagina.
So
That one
that
person is
sequence,
killed.
that was
Yeah.
like the dumbest. That was like the only like major critique I guess I have of the film was that whole sequence with Bjorn, where when the acid's
Yeah.
falling on him, it hits his hand
Yeah.
first, right, and he can tell that it's going to drip on his face in a second or his chest, and he just doesn't move. He just he just stands still and it's like, oh my
He can
god,
roll,
get it off
gee.
me. He could have rolled. He
He
could have
didn't
done
have
anything. It was like
parents
the
to
dumbest.
teach
That
him
was
how to roll. Yeah,
that was like the one death I think that
That
was
was-
like kind of like okay, like clearly the character here is not thinking clearly. And which I mean, I guess your hands burning with acid, maybe you're not thinking clearly, but
Panic mode.
yeah. Okay, I'm not
Mm.
thinking.
Well,
Him
the
just
guy
going full board with the
Look,
electric
the whole
thing.
they
was
weren't
also-
making really good decisions. That guy wasn't making really good decisions as he went.
throughout the whole film, yeah, he's making.
It was in character.
every bad decision he made them.
Nah, and you could tell he was kind of meant to be kind of that.
And was that stun
Immoral.
gun he had, was that like a callback to Alien Isolation? Yes. I remember there being a stun gun. That being the only Alien property that I've seen that had a stun gun in it.
don't know
I
on
mean, it
that.
makes sense to have one just for a
Yeah.
variety of reasons. So I didn't think about it too
I mean,
hard.
definitely the X-ray machine. I found that
Yeah.
interesting cinematically, and they set it up correctly
Yep.
enough that it's like this isn't just done for cinematic reasons. This is done for good reasons because it's a good reason to have that in there. And I liked how a lot of things were set up in the beginning, like when they're trying to sneak their way through the room full of face huggers. They have that whole let's turn the temperature to body heat. Maybe they won't notice. Give me a little bit also of some Jurassic Park vibes. Trying to get through
Sure, it was a
Mhm.
good
that
tension
group of
scene.
monsters.
Yeah, I really
And
liked that scene
that
too. Actually, I liked one that it showed that they're using like their brains to try and figure out and solve problems rather than just going in guns blazing. But then two also that it was a very suspenseful scene, especially when when you've got Kay trying to contact them on the radio. Like, oh my god.
yeah, that's a real moral decision. I'm like, I would think, let me destroy this freaking thing, but then you're leaving this woman alone on the ship by herself. That's one of the moral dilemmas that I really did like.
Yeah. Very good use of very good use of silence in that scene. In like the movie opens in pure silence and that scene is the only other point in the movie where it's just pure silence. Like
One
the
of
only
the
thing you could hear was the stuff, and all it was like is just the normal stuff you hear around the theater or whatnot.
one of the things that you've reminded me of by mentioning the opening sequence is I think that something that is unique to Romulus and Prometheus and Covenant, right? These three. Um, the sense of religiosity that is kind of presented. So if you remember when they're pulling in the rock, the asteroid, and they're cutting it up, they have this. It looks like this council, right? And they're all in this special gear, right? It gave off to me religious vibes, culty vibes, um, much like Prometheus and these and Covenant both called back to kind of religious themes and religious what's the word for it? Iconography, if you will, while not being overtly religious. So obviously they weren't wearing crosses or didn't have any like symbols or anything, but the manner of dress, the way they treated it, with the reverence in which they acted, it came across, and I think it was well directed and well shot, that this was something greater, right? That this was something greater, and the way in the reverence which they treat the science in this film, I think really gives off that vibe, and I think that was well done.
Well, Kay did have something that did remind me of, like, a holy saint from Catholicism, her being pregnant and all, sort of Mother Mary. It wasn't exactly that. I couldn't tell it, but it gave me that sort of vibe. So it would make sense there's some religious overtones picked up about this, especially with the sort of motherhood scene. Okay. You could definitely relate that to either motherhood or religion in the end, a sort of twisted version of it at the very least.
Yeah, I didn't think of it through a religious lens when I was watching the film, but I can definitely see that too, that opening sequence for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the themes of the Prometheus and Covenant is was very kind of the search for answers for the origins of man. This kind of the existential horror that goes along with that, right? Like one of the best scenes in those movies was when they wake up the progenitor, the alien guy, and the alien guy just looks at them like, "What the fuck is going on?" Right? This godlike figure, this one that has seeded life throughout the universe. It was is implied, created man actually, um, just doesn't know you and doesn't know what's going on. And I thought that was well done. And I think that again, Romulus carries on that to an extent. Romulus, and I'll say this because I gotta go soon. But Romulus is a callback to the older style of the Alien movies and of that kind of genre of horror. Because I don't consider Alien Romulus an action movie. I consider it a horror movie. I think it does have action elements, but it is primarily of isolation, of being stuck and needing to get out, and having an unknown and unknowable enemy that is unique coming after you. I think that's why the scene at the end works very well with the body horror of this thing coming out of this woman that mimics the actions of a child in a way that's just enough to bring to mind motherhood, bring to mind these things. But it does so in a way that is so off and so alien that it brings out this disgust response, this disgust reflex. And I think that did it very well. So overall, A+ of a movie. Very good. I really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can see that perspective at the end. I think they could have shortened it by 20 minutes by just shoving her back in there and sort of have the main character go on, what am I going to face when we get to wherever we're going, blah, blah, blah. That's sort of a idea behind it. I just, from a perspective, whole in bit, it looked like a bunch of fan service or maybe a nod to Prometheus. But I'm fine with it. I just think it would have been better if they would have cut it out completely.
Well,
Or
they failed that dice roll. You know, they didn't they getting nat 20s, and so
okay, fair
uh,
Yeah.
enough, fair enough. Multiple.
have any of you read
Many words.
the any of the alien books like Cold Forge?
I have
I
not. Do you recommend them?
Mm.
Should I pick them up?
I'd recommend Cold Forge and Into Charybdis. They're both by the same author. I think Alex White. I think his name is. Let me double check.
Link it to me. But I do have to go. I love
Yeah.
you all. I love you all for talking to me, but I do have an out. And so I love you. I'm going to go. See you guys later.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming on. I'll link you it.
bye.
But yeah, if you read Cold Forge, there's like some similarities between this and Cold Forge. Like so, I'm not gonna spoil anything from Cold Forge, I guess, but it's set. The primary setting is on a space station that also has like two separate segments because this had like Romulus and Remus. There were two different segments of the space station. That also has it also has those two separate sections too. And there's also an android companion as well, like an android best friend to the main character. Um, but yeah, I saw a lot of similarities between the film and that book, which those books are really good. Those
Oh.
two at least. Some of the
Yeah.
other alien books are not as good, but
I've got hundreds of books on my Audible account, and let's see. I've purchased River of Pain, Sea of Sorrows, Out of the Shadows. I've been meaning to listen to William Gibson's original script for Alien
that's
3.
really good. I'd highly recommend that.
Yeah, and oh yeah, Sea of Sorrows. Was that the one you were talking about?
No, the Cold Forge.
Oh, the Cold Forge.
Yeah.
I see it. It's on Audible. I haven't listened to any of the Alien audiobooks, not even the ones that I own. Yeah, I've been meaning to listen
Yeah.
to I've been meaning to listen to William Gibson's original treatment for Alien 3. Yeah, Audible made an audiobook out of William Gibson's original treatment for Alien 3, and it's supposed to be much different than the Alien 3 we got.
It's
Mhm.
very, very, very different. There's actually two different
Yeah.
scripts. There's two different ones. There's the Audible one, which was I don't know if that was his first draft or a second draft. And there's also a second one too, because he did two different drafts that were like basically two different films, but there's a lot of similarities between the two different drafts. But
From what I heard, that one of them had a giant alien mother queen that tears through a city. That, that was that one of them.
I only know the one. I only know the Audible one, but the Audible one's really good.
Yeah.
And they
Like
also
I
really
joined a
expand the
book
lore a lot
club.
too.
Okay, I don't know any about any of these. Okay, I've been out. I go thing to thing, but it is interesting. You brought up that one book, and you're saying it's very similar. Like, I think a lot of movie studios should actually base stuff off of very popular books. Okay, I think that's a smarter move you sort of test it in the novel market, and sort of like they could have done a lot more with the sequel trilogy if they incorporated elements that fans like from the EU, but they threw it out instead. I understand they wanted their own thing, but I just think more people should test things out. Like Japan has test things out in like the light novel market, and like with manga, if they're popular enough, they'll get an anime adaptation. So just something I wanted to bring up in general, although it's not really related in that.
But one thing that is unique about that is unique about this series is that I'm right now holding my Blu-ray copy of the Alien anthology, which is the first 4 Alien movies. And anthology is really a proper term because we got Alien directed by Ridley Scott, Aliens directed by James Cameron, Alien 3, which was directed by David Fincher, though he denies it. Though he disavows it. We have Alien Resurrection, which was directed by Jean. I might be mispronouncing his name. It's a French guy, Jean Paul Jean Genet. Don't know what his name is, but he directed Amelie. But he directed movies Amelie and City of Lost Children, and as well as Delicatessen. And each one of these movies has a kind of the
Definitive feel.
stylistic stamp of each of their directors. And then when Ridley Scott came back to the series and made 2 movies, well, Ridley Scott, he practically has become a different kind of director since making Alien.
A lot of directors change over time. They
Yeah,
have
and
different influences and they want to move on, then they want to come back.
yeah, and that felt like the series was kind of stagnating a bit. And now with this one, we see Freddy Alvarez is certainly very taking a lot of stuff from is taking a lot of stuff from the Alien franchise and using it to inform his films. But if you've seen any of his other films like Don't Speak or his Evil Dead remake, it really has got a lot of his own style in that. Has a lot of his own style in that as well. And that kind of makes this series kind of a piece with what with what a series that most people probably wouldn't think of when they think of the Alien movies, which was like the first 4 or 5 Mission Impossible movies, which was Tom Cruise brought on a different director with each film, and each director kind of put their own stylistic stamp on what was to the conventions of the film. You had Brian De Palma for the first one, John Woo for the second, J.J. Abrams for the third. Again, a first-time director who would go on to bigger things, making the third entry of a franchise. And then the fourth one, you had Brad Bird. And the fifth one, he brought on Christopher McQuarrie when he brought back Christopher McQuarrie for the 6th and 7th Mission Impossibles. That just seemed... I felt kind of disappointed by that because they would just be so stylistically similar. And
Okay, variety is the spice of life after all. In this movie,
Yeah.
I think overall it was definitely a good movie. I wanted to give it a better sort of rating, but it's definitely above average. Does everything right in the beginning. The problem with the sort of latter half where it gets more it felt contrived to a lot of us. It seems like Wick's gone. We can talk about the contrivances if we want. It's sort of the sort of horror tone that's really prevalent. It's like at the end they're like, let's give the fans some action, and I did like that. But the contrivances that sort of led up to that sort of bothered me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I clearly I wasn't as big as fan as some people as the sort of human hybrid. Okay, maybe
And
I watched
yeah.
listen to too much System of the Down. Is that who did
Yeah.
that?
Well,
No,
it
that was
looked
Linkin Park, I think.
it looked to me like it was. I mean, it was like a terrifying, disgusting creature, but it
Yeah.
wasn't as disgusting as the one in like a the one that the thing that scares me like that's quote unquote scares. I guess it's like more like disturbs me more than anything out of all these movies is the human alien hybrid from Resurrection. That thing just looked like way more disgusting. But I'm actually, it was so gross that like I don't ever want to look at it. Whereas this thing, I could look at it again and not be like ewed out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Mm,
pretty much on the same.
Disagree.
I'm pretty much on the same page. Yeah. The, as I said, if you know, it doesn't do much original, but it does it well, and it's a pretty
yeah.
good. It's kind of a tribute to the Alien franchise as a whole, with all the different little uh kind of
Yeah, I've been
Easter
out
eggs
of it,
for
and even I
Alien.
noticed some things. So
Yeah.
I haven't been keeping up with the franchise. I think I opted out after 3. I'm like, what the hell was this movie? And I just left it behind. I
Yep.
did
Though.
see Prometheus. I don't remember what I hated, what I didn't like about it. Could have been the environment I watched it in that sort of disturbed me, but I remember not liking it. I liked the idea behind it, but the execution I think was poorly done.
Don't say
This
that too
I
loud.
like.
Wick might come back. Uh,
Oh, come back and whip
Debate you on Prometheus.
Prometheus whack me. Okay,
As
like
I
how
said,
dare you not like it?
I
It,
liked Prometheus despite its attempts to piss me off.
I
Because
like that they
Yeah,
expanded. I like that they expanded the lore. Um, and I from a film perspective, I thought it was like it's like a good film in and of itself.
yeah,
But then they didn't really do anything with it with Covenant. They just killed off Shaw right away off screen, and then it's like, oh, we're going to the alien homeworld, and then they're all we're gonna kill them all. David's gonna kill them all, and then that's it. That's okay. Like there's so much potential there that they just didn't deliver upon.
and this movie has a lot of potential itself to sort of spawn re-kick the series. I hope it does, because this, despite some of my particular problems with it, overall excellent film. Okay, I tend to nitpick at things, just what I do, and
yeah,
but I try to figure out a way to sort of mitigate that. The sort of action ending felt a little bit off for me. I think they could have kept the horror vibe up a little bit better, but I didn't make the movie. I'm sure it was really complex, and for what it was, I am trying to think if there any special moments out there. We went with the sort of them creeping through the sort of moralistic thing when the woman suck with names. K, the character K
yeah.
called them moralistic thing. Went over that. I'm trying to think if Wick brought up moralistic moments. I think he's talking about going back for the android Andy. And yeah, I can see where he's coming from with that. Again, it just felt a little bit forced in a couple places, but they lampshade a lot of these decisions well enough. I doubt many people were bothered by it, except for
Yeah, I
a nitpicker like me.
yeah,
Yep.
well, you said earlier too, like they should have gone to the so Kay and Rain should have gone to the ship, put her in cryo, and then gone back for Andy. I don't think there was
Yeah.
enough time for that though. I think because they were on such a rush that I don't know if there would have been enough time to
Oh yeah,
go
they
all the
did
way back,
have the clicking timer, which they
which I
definitely
loved.
set up properly.
When as soon as I heard that they only had like what is like 45 minutes and we're like barely into the film, like we're still in like the beginning of the second act. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a way different movie. I was thinking, I'm like, this is gonna be a rush, and it was.
Yeah,
No,
in some ways.
yeah.
You
No,
brought up the thing about the aliens moving slowly, but they didn't know that they were about to die. So
Oh, and how about uh when Tyler gets grabbed, right before they reach the elevator, right? He gets grabbed. He sees that there's like 3 or 4 of them coming down the whatever you want to call it, the rafters. Kind of like a callback to
mm,
Aliens. Um,
mm,
he didn't, but he didn't say anything, right? He still had time. He was still alive. I thought he was either going to shoot them, which probably would be a really bad idea, given that he probably would have killed everybody if he did that. So he made the right call in not doing that. But he didn't like yell like he didn't try to warn them that there's like 3 more of them coming. No, maybe he didn't want to like attract attention to the fact that there were other survivors in case the other aliens didn't know, and so he like made a split-second decision to like, just remain quiet. I don't know, but that was like an interesting choice on his part.
yeah, it's also the acid thing. Almost seemed like a slap in the face. I mean, yeah, people bring that up with the first Alien movies, but acid doesn't burn continuously. I think the way they did it, it definitely is a concern. AI would come up with, and they might have not been aware of it in the first movie. But acidic properties eventually fizzle out after some time. So acid
well, they
thing, I
did.
think, is overhyped. Unless you're like at the end scene when she did the acid, obviously that was in a cargo thing where it's just the acid went through and bam, you were into space. Okay, that made sense. Okay, but it depends
Well,
on where in the ship they
Well, they
were in.
Andy, when he's controlled by, or he's not controlled, but he's like, I guess he's controlled, right? But when he's controlled by Rook, like a new
Influence.
director, influenced by Rook, he does say when they enter that corridor, I'm pretty sure he says something along the lines of, those you can't use them because we're on the bottom floor, I think, or something like that of the space station.
Oh, he does?
Um,
Did I just miss
yeah,
that?
I'm pretty sure he,
Okay.
I'm
If
pretty
he
sure he
said the
says
bottom
something,
floor.
but he says that this might intimidate them and scare them back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I miss where he said the bottom floor. That actually does make sense if he would have brought that up. Okay. Sorry. It
Now,
almost seems like an insult.
how do you feel about Andy when he turns back to his original self? Um, I thought throughout the movie, I thought once he turned, I thought what they were going to have happen is him like fight against Rook's influence and like overcome it on his own somehow, but they didn't go that route. What do you guys think of that?
That wouldn't have made sense for Android. Sorry. I mean, it would have been an interesting choice, but I would have probably criticized it. Okay. Like, how can an Android with this program input in him by his pretty much his master, the Rain character? Okay. She put it in. It was a split-second decision to sort of save people. He wouldn't let her take it out, okay, because he had new update, okay. Fight. I mean, I would have liked it in theory, but there would have been a lot of setup, and that probably also would have pissed off some people. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
And if you do
Seems
go
like a
that
bad
route,
move.
yeah, if you do go that route, you have to like lay hints for that ahead of time, probably. Like have
Yeah,
him
you would
like
have
have
to.
hesitation at a few points in throughout the second arc of the film or
Yeah,
something like that.
it could have been possible, but it would have definitely added bloat to it. Good idea in theory, but I think just too complex to really integrate into it.
And did anybody now? I'm not sure if any of you have any kind of background in astronomy, but did the rings of that ring system strike? Did it look solid, or did it look diffused to you? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have that background, but I
It
Yeah,
am
kind
I
of
don't
looked
curious
either.
like
how I
yeah. I took a
wondering how
few.
they couldn't see their own sun though. I'm like, why would they? It's almost what you were talking about. Why would they not try to get some sunlight, a little bit more sunlight on this mining colony? Is it to keep them down, or the evil
Yeah,
corporation angle?
yeah,
That
and
was.
all
I
of
mean,
them
it was a
had this
great
kind of,
moment in that,
and
and
all of
yeah,
them.
it also. Sorry,
Yeah, and they
go on.
didn't look particularly pale either. If they've never seen the sun, they all look kind of
Well, I'm sure they
like
have
this.
a sort of a training sort of regiments, like space people do certain things. They probably do have like UV lights that tan people. That wouldn't bother me, the sort of tanness. But I
Yeah.
understand why you're finding
They
it
look
as an
like
issue.
conventionally attractive Gen Z actors.
Yeah, well, genetically modified for the
Okay.
future.
So
Yeah.
one thing you
And
brought up earlier. Good.
I was going to say about the ring system is that that ring systems only look solid because the individual debris particles are like, because they're so far away from them, but the individual particles of like ring systems are like meters to kilometers apart, to hundreds of kilometers apart, and yet the ring system in this movie looked like a solid object.
I thought I was a nitpicker.
Yeah,
No, I
I'm
understand. If
fine
you
with
have a
it.
certain concept of it, most people won't have your understanding of it.
Yeah. Now
I mean,
maybe the physics doesn't work out in real life, but like from a film perspective, I'm fine with it.
as I said, when they go up, they've never seen the sun. It sort of reminds me of one of the Paul brothers having those sort of colorblind, like artificial. Wow, we've never seen the sun before. Like, how did you get the ship? I did have a question about that ship. Like, they were going to travel in that ship, they just needed the cryopod. So there's mechanical issues. I'm like, how did they get that ship? Was it something standard issue, or did they steal that ship they went up to the space station on? I mean, doesn't it's just something in the back of my mind that bothered me just a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't know how they
Besides
got the
that,
ship either. Maybe they explained it in dialogue that I missed, but like
yeah,
I
I don't think it did.
assumed that they were like scavengers or something, that they were like using it to like
Yeah,
scavenge different like parts of the planet, but I have
I
no idea.
assume they went up in space. Okay, so it made the sort of sun sort of moment seem a little bit weird to me if they went up into space in that ship.
Well,
But that wasn't clearly.
I don't think Rain had seen the. I don't know if Rain had been in the ship though before.
Yeah, they hyped up the sort of thing for Rain. Like, she's never done it before. But the rest of them also seem fairly impressed by it. Also, the sun. They probably don't get to go to that high up in the ship, but again, this definitely is worth probably watching again to make sure the things that I had problems with weren't explained.
Now you mentioned
And
earlier, Vincent, the cryo tubes. Now, why not just push it back in? Like so that I have very mixed feelings on that. I guess. I mean, like in the story, it does. I mean, it does make sense. It does show you that like life signs are critical, so it won't let you free somebody if life signs are critical. And then Wick brought up that there's an alien organism inside the ship, inside the tube too, which might affect things.
yeah,
But
but they use the cryo effects to freeze the actual cryo things. Why would you if you have those? Why would you design it that you couldn't just be like, oh, there's an alien. We're closer to these cryopods. Let me throw one into this cryopod here. Why have this special function to detect it? Freeze the motherfucker and just let them sort of deal with it when they come out. Sorry, it just doesn't make logical sense to have the function. I mean, sure, Wick has a headcanon for why that works. Maybe he's even correct that would be how they work, but it just seems like a contrivance in the end.
well,
Okay.
I guess the it is possible, and this sort of does play into like Wick's explanation, I guess too, which is that the alien maybe it was basically killing her or bringing her life signs to critical, even though they were frozen. And so that's why that normally, let's say like normally the pod would just freeze you, even if you were very, very, very injured. But in this particular case, it didn't because the alien was still within her and still damaging her from within, or damaging her life signs from within, even though they were frozen.
It's not consistent with the what we've told. The aliens were able to be frozen, at least the face huggers. I guess if you had headcanon that this is like a super magical version hybrid, so it's like super more powerful, it works. At least maybe even the story explains that and I just missed it. The movie explains it and I just miss it. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting theory. I just don't know if it pans out.
Cool. Well, any other thoughts on the film?
But I had one,
Yeah, I'm
not on
trying to.
this
I've been
film, but
thinking.
on we've been discussing the franchise and Alien 3, the the theatrical cut. It's we all I guess we're pretty much all on the same page that the theatrical cut is terrible, but the assembly cut, which was more similar to what was David Fincher's original vision, is much better. It's a much better movie.
I've heard
Better
that.
than
I've
a
heard a
Snyder
lot of
Cut?
people say that. The assembly cut, from my understanding, I've not seen it, but I looked it up because
Yeah.
everyone online talks about it all the time. But apparently, it's like an extra like 23 minutes or something they add to the film, like some huge amount
Yeah.
of like, extra runtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot more. You get a lot more in-depth character interactions, and it's just an overall, better movie. It's a worthy. It's not as good as the first two, but it's a worthy sequel to the first two.
Yeah, horror's a weird genre if you're going that way. Sometimes less is better. You want more mystery, you want more unknown. Depends on the context of what you're doing. Like you're going sequels down the line. Sometimes you want them to explain how this stuff has changed. So sometimes you need more is better, but keep it simple, stupid is something that I always follow in writing, typically. And the end of this movie seemed to add a couple stupid moments for the sake of some really cool action sequences. Don't get me wrong. I like when they use the acid in different ways within the movie. There was a sort of elevator sequence that I've been thinking, yeah, they're having this sort of a what was it, the gravity purge that they brought up earlier, but it seemed like a way longer moment of gravity in that particular scene. Maybe it reset, so something it just felt way longer with the sort of a hiccup of gravity when they turned off the gravity system of the ship. It seemed it came on for way longer than it did earlier. Did anyone else get that impression?
Throughout in the movie, yeah, but like, also like one of the things that I mentioned to like the aliens like quote unquote like moving slow. Um, like it seems like there's moments where the camera, like they're like filming, and it's like almost like slow motion, where like the characters aren't
Okay.
moving in slow mo, right? They're not like moving in slow mo, but like it feels like the world around
Well,
them, like the events are playing out slower at a slower pace, and I'm guessing that's like a
Okay,
film
so
direct,
to
like a
well,
director's
reflect
cut
there's
type
a
stuff.
adrenaline high,
uh,
to reflect adrenaline high of someone in cinematic form. It's like slow mo, more adrenaline factor. You know,
Yeah,
there's a
adrenaline
difference
spike, you
between
just slow down. Well, I
running
like that.
time.
Uh,
Yeah, difference between running time and cinematic time. Between
yeah,
there's the actual runtime of the film. There is a difference between actual runtime of the film and the actual space and time that the characters are experiencing. I'm actually currently reading Paul Schrader's trend. I'm currently reading Paul Schrader's Transcendental Style in Film, which and Transcendental Style in Film, and he actually mentioned this in a part the audiobook I was listening to today, and how and he talks about the difference between runtime and the cinematic time that the characters are experiencing in the works of Yasujiro Ozu. Now that's a completely different kind of movie altogether, and Yasujiro Ozu made Japanese domestic dramas in the in the 1950s, going back all the way to the 30s.
Hmm.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked about this
Mhm.
film too is that they didn't rush to kill off the characters. It seemed like
Yeah.
it would have been so stupid if they would have had like one of them get face hugged inside the water scene. I think it played out so much better that they actually escaped that, not more or less, I guess.
Yeah, they fought. I liked the way they
Yeah.
fought back against those face huggers all the time. I thought it might have been a little bit stupid. That one girl, Navarro, I think her name was so easily taken. Maybe, maybe not. She wasn't expecting it. Okay, they were. I think the reason it actually worked is because she really just was coming out of nowhere and wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it. Why
She
everyone
was
else was busy.
she seemed to have the least character characterization of any of the other ones for the first 40 minutes of the movie, for the first 20 to 40 minutes of the movie, and so you could tell she's first.
Why did it have to be the non-binary looking chick? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Uh, the whole trope, the black guy dies first sometimes plays
Yeah.
into mine. All of this, I mean, they did have the sort of final girl sort of vibe at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's uncertain what the happened to Andy. He's technically a robot, I guess. Well, android, synthetic, humanoid. I always like the sort of features they did, the sort of milky stuff. I don't think they played it up as well in this, but it was subtly there, but more realistic than I've seen in previous Alien film. I
When
think like with
sorry, go ahead.
no, go on.
Well, like the future of Andy. So, Rain and him are going to this planet now where androids
Mm.
are supposedly illegal, right? That's what they say. Um, and one of the characters, I think it's the guy who hates androids, Bjorn. Uh, I think he even says like, "Oh, they're gonna melt you down when you get there." But like, we don't actually know if that's true. Like, we don't know if like the characters have like good information on this, or if he's just fucking with him. Like, we don't know if they're going to destroy him when he gets there, right? Maybe she and him could reason with the authorities or something, right?
Or maybe even the laws have passed. They have 9-year travel in cryo, okay? It's a long time. Things can change, okay? You can be helpful. There's so
That
many elements, but of course,
Yeah.
Bajorian would play it up because he hates the synthetics.
that just makes me
And
think of the androids in Alien Isolation, where this also goes back to the corporation being so evil that it hits a wall of logic, where the androids are made to look completely featureless, apparently because customers prefer it, and they look absolutely horrifying. They're
yeah,
just these like human faces of plastic that just dive right into the uncanny valley.
hmm.
I do like that that they had an android character though, and Andy,
Yeah,
the actor, did a phenomenal job.
yeah,
Um,
he did.
Well,
but
they had two of them, and I think they were a good contrast of a more simple, down home sort of android going up against really corporatized, the corpo
Ian
sort of.
Holmes android.
now there's
Yeah,
also a question too that maybe this is like me because I play the RPGs and I'm a fucking weirdo. But when they find Rook and they first activate him, like if Rain is of the view that like androids are artificial people, right? That they're persons. Why wouldn't they like offer to take Rook with them and like save him too? They don't even they don't talk about that or discuss it as a group or anything. Before they knew that he was obviously working against them, but
Before they knew that they
yeah.
was obviously working against, I guess they just treated him as. I guess they didn't have much of a connection to him, and they treated him as just damaged goods.
I think it would have like that would have been like in line with Rain's character to like at least like bring it up, like to try and like convince the others or something, and maybe Bjorn shoots them down and gets into a big fight or something over it.
There was one
Yeah,
moment between between the between Andy and the Ian Holm android where that that I thought was interesting, where, and it's just a brief moment, where the Ian Holm android grabs Andy's arm and tells him in private, look out for the humans, they're too emotional." And that kind
they're willing to
kind
kill
of
themselves.
like,
That is very logical,
yeah,
very Vulcan.
that was very interesting. Like, was he saying for Andy to look out for himself, or to look out for the sake of the human? To look out for himself, or to look out for the sake of the humans, or to just not trust whatever, or to not trust whatever kind of emotional reactions they might have? Because
Well, for Bajorn, for the Bajor guy, that was right to not trust, but a little bit stupid to bring up in his presence and to try to pull off right then and there. Okay, so seemed a little bit stupid to bring that up in front of him and act on it, knowing how that would probably play out. But you could have put the infected girl in a place if you would have been calm and cool and would have went, and things probably would have turned out well. I wouldn't call that a contrivance, but because it was within all the characters to do the actions they did within that scene. It just
I like
Yeah.
that they, I like that they had. I like Tyler too as a character. I think that the captain. I think that he was like cool, level-headed. He actually cared about his crew and his people, and like I think that he played sort of like a heroic like side character to Reigns, I guess. Like almost like a. I almost thought for a minute, I'm like, are they gonna have them both live? Because like he did seem like a genuinely like a good guy, like a Hicks like character from like Aliens.
hmm. Yeah, at least they didn't play up any romantic angle. Okay. A lot of people like
Yeah.
to inject romance within these sort of things. Sometimes it works. I don't think it would have worked here. I mean, you had a sort of hint between probably Tyler and Rain that maybe they thought about it. Maybe they even got together, just issues sort of brought them apart. Maybe even Andy, because she definitely did have a odd fixation with her buddy companion. Okay. Came off as a little bit off, but it was believable. As Wick was bringing up the sort of fight she had with having this dysfunctional android for so long. Okay. It's sort of like a drag for her. Okay. She doesn't want to admit that she would be better off without her. They do play that sort of a dichotomy quite well throughout the series. And sort of when Andy does that sort of mental switch, you get a little bit of the sort of surprise from Rain as a character. Like, what did you do with my Andy? I'm still him. I have all the memories. I'm just working in proper function now. This chip I'm repairing my systems and all.
Well, and it
It
wasn't
makes
just.
sort of his.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it makes a sort of return after she takes off the thing a little bit weaker, but not much. Okay, because of what if you remember, the chip was like repairing him, so he goes back to his previous state almost completely. A little bit of criticism there, but not much. Not much. He was damaged already. Again, I just don't know how he ended up seizuring on the ground. That
Yeah, I don't know if it was like his previous state because they refer to it as an upgrade, and I don't know how much of his personality was changed because of the quote unquote upgrade that fixed him, quote unquote, but or versus Rook giving that command. Like there's obviously a clear difference the moment he puts it in with the upgrade and the way he
yes.
talks. He very much changes the way he talks and but I think the Rook's command to him, that his change in priorities to prioritizing the company and what's best for the company, I think that like probably changed things far more than the upgrade did even. Well,
Yes,
it's a
that
combination of the
definitely
two. You
felt
can't like separate them almost.
Yeah.
Are we done with? We're kind of like picking at bones here. Are we done with the
Yeah.
All
You're
right.
right. We're
discussion of
just
the movie
sort of
itself?
dragging it out.
All right. So I
It's because there's like something I'd like to bring up that's kind of parallel to the discussion of the film. And are any of you familiar with Comics Matter with your boy Zach?
What? How's that? Okay, I do know of him. I haven't followed him in a while. Okay, go on.
Yeah,
How does this connect?
yeah, because I've wanted to, because in recent years I've just been seeing how the culture war has just been ruining not just culture itself, but discussions around culture.
That's a
And
whole nother discussion.
yeah, and this is something that Zach from Comics Matter has been talking about. Oh, and how how a lot of the culture warriors around uh movies around who have made a living just dunking on move dunking on movies in the kind of culture war space
Yeah,
have
I
are just
think it's
becoming
false
very
positives,
repetitive.
okay, with a
So
lot of these people. Yeah, they're also
yeah,
getting a lot of false positives, in my opinion. They
yeah,
see these
false
certain
positive.
elements crop up. They think it's something to do with wokeness, or
Yeah,
in some in left wing spaces, something to do with misogyny. It's the same sort of thing. It's just false positives, just because it has a woman. As I joked about earlier, isn't it sort of sexist that it's the non-binary looking chick who sort of got the face hugger first and died first? That was me joking, but some people would actually look at the fact that she was the first one to die and think that it's representative of something. And you'll
yeah,
have both sides sort of have their nitpicks, or their very, I'm not going to say they're all false positives, but I would see some of the elements that they would complain about as sort of like, yeah, dude, I'm not getting that reading at all. I think you're just way too
yeah,
looking for this stuff. I don't know if
yeah,
it's they're looking for this stuff, or if they legitimately think that this element of this film or show is because of this cultural reason. And I've
yeah.
waited long enough for
Yeah, Comics Matter has been calling it the narrative, and as you can see here, everything is bad according to clowns who are financially incentivized to say so.
and
And
that's no
it's
shit,
an
Sherlock.
interest, yeah, and it's interesting because he just a few years ago one of he was one of the people who was getting shit from these kind of social justice culture warriors on the left, and now he's getting it from, and he was one of the first major figures in what has been called com- Comicsgate, and
Comic Escape.
now he's
Yes,
getting
Comic
a
Escape is a trash fire. I don't even know what to comment
well,
on
we're
that.
getting way off
and
topic, so I probably will
yeah,
wrap
Yeah,
things up
yeah,
here in a
yeah,
minute. But
yeah.
I do want to give everyone a chance here to rate the film using whatever rating system you want. I'll go last since I don't want to bias your answers. So go ahead.
Then
Well,
yeah,
I'll let the doc guy go first. The
yeah.
airplay doc.
I pretty much I pretty much go on a 5-point scale, five being, you know, better, being standout and uh you know exactly how they have it on a letterboxed. It's a 5-star scale, five being great, one being awful, five being great, four being good, three being fair, two being bad, and just one being just plain awful. I've rated this a 4. It's a good movie. It does nothing original, but it does it well.
I go with I go with average, above average. I would give this above average. The reason I do that is because there's an element of subjective elements that will put it to the great category. I think people who can respect the homage will put it in the great category. People who will see it as sort of an insult to just them copying will probably mark it down for the unoriginality. But cinematically, story wise, even music, I think definitely above average. No matter what anyone puts it at, your subjective reading can put it down to even below average. But I think that's unfair to this film, given how expertly crafted most of it is, and even some of the contrivances that I've been criticizing is for the sake of some excellent in scenes. Okay, and could have been cut shorter by 20 minutes, but that's not that's what I would have done. But I'm fine with the film actually doing that.
I guess I'll use Raymond's rating scale here real quick. I'll give it a 5 out of 5. But I'm also an Alien fan who's been disappointed, who's been very disappointed by every film after after Aliens. So, but yeah, I would say 5 out of 5. I went in with very low expectations, and I was really impressed. And I feel like yeah, there are definitely a lot of callbacks and similarities to to previous films, and there's also to the Cold Forge book. But I feel like it also told an original enough story on its own, and I loved it. I loved the ride, and yeah, I'd say that it's a phenomenal addition to the Alien franchise, one that was long overdue. So that's my take.
Oh, you even hated Alien Predator? I thought it was a stupid ass movie, but at least the first one was at least fun. Okay,
Oh, well,
I'll give it that much.
I know. Okay, I do like Alien vs Predator. I wasn't counting those, but yeah, I do like Alien vs. The first one. It's an okay film.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. Everyone trashes it.
It's not a
but
good film, but it's good. The second one was just like, I can't watch this. Okay, I like the first one, had bloody applause. The second one's just like, no.
I did like Prey.
Ooh.
Prey I thought was a pretty good Predator film.
Do you count Spaceballs as an alien movie?
No.
I will, because I love it. Okay, I love it. Yes, it does. It's the best alien movie ever. Spaceballs, the final
Because
frontier.
John Hurt plays the exact same plays the same character in that movie.
It's the same universe. Okay.
All right. Got anything else?
Nah. As I said, I'm an anti-YouTuber. Okay. What normal YouTubers do, I'll do the opposite. So don't subscribe. Don't like any of my videos. Yeah, how this anti-YouTuber arc is going to go. I'm probably actually going to go into a research mode right now because there's quite a few interesting things. So don't know where I'm going to go. I will find out. I tend to go with the flow.
Are you live, Vincent? I can raid you.
Oh no, I'm not live. I'm doing the Thursday night, my normal Thursday night stream. I didn't think about going live, but that's because I'm an anti-YouTuber. I do everything opposite. That's not smart for people to do. So if you want to follow me just to see what to do the opposite of that might actually be a smart move. Okay. Be like, oh, he's doing this. Let me do the complete opposite. Okay.
Well, hey, let me know how it works out. Or I'll probably be paying attention, so I'll probably see for myself how it works out. But
you got to try different tactics. Okay, maybe it'll work out for you. Probably not.
Oh, and if don't like and comment and subscribe on Vincent's stuff, but do on mine. But yeah, if you two want to shout yourselves out one last time, real quick, where people can find you, just like a brief of if you want to shout yourselves out real quick.
Well,
I sort of just did that, but
you can find me on the X Twitter app at AirplayDoc. You can watch my documentary Airplay on my Patreon at patreon.com/metalheadfilms. I've got a Kickstarter up for the promotion and distribution of said doc, and I've got a new single out promoting the said doc that is
The
available on
single
all
seems
major.
to be what decided you to do a a single? Okay, I have to ask. Sorry.
It's because I grew up with movies that had interesting soundtracks that were promoted alongside them, and I wanted to do the same. And this one had I take music from the film along with audio samples that kind of explain what's going on. So to just have a different kind of venue to get the to tell the story that is told in the documentary.
Okay,
All
I
right.
can understand that. It's an
Yeah.
interesting decision. Definitely, it's just the one decision. I'm like, I wonder what process he went through to decide this.
Oh, I got
Fair enough.
two
I
more things real
respect.
quick. One's food for thought, maybe. I still don't know how Andy fell. But what if he was disabled? What if he was disabled by Rook because Rook knew that there was an alien coming, and Rook really wanted them to escape because he doesn't want a bunch of loose threads that could possibly harm the company by exposing this project.
That's the best theory for it, but again, just headcanon. Okay, it makes sense within the story, given how Rook acts towards it. I still think it's contrived, but you can give it a pass because he's a malfunctioning corpo robot who, yeah, sort of a 2021 sort of. It gave me some sort of 2021 vibes. No, Dave, I can't allow that. And the space baby. They gave me little hints at that, but I'm probably reading too deep into it. But yeah,
And
works in headcanon.
the last thing
You
is,
can
oh, go ahead, Airplay.
Yeah, you can see that's why I don't give it a 5. 5's third act really kind of, yeah.
I almost never give anything the top score. Okay. But again, nitpicking. What was the last thing?
Porcelain says, "Why are so many bad movies nowadays running so long? I feel like films generally are running longer without really adding any added value to the excess."
I think it's the more is better approach to things. You can always trim it down. Hell, in today's society, there's always going to be a director's different cuts. Okay, at the end of the day, that's why I think it is just more. They think it's more bang for the buck.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks
Well,
both of you for coming on. Thanks, Wick, for coming on earlier. Thanks
I
for
was
watching,
gonna say
everyone.
that I was gonna say that well, I believe that a movie should be as short as possible, if not shorter. But then I also made a 5-hour documentary about people discussing ethics in journalism.
No one wants to
So,
hear that for 5 hours. No, I
well,
interesting
I
concept,
cut it into
but I'm a
that,
nerd.
and that's why I cut it into 1 hour and 45-minute movie and 1 3-hour movie, so that if you are interested, so if you finish the hour and 45-minute movie and you still say to yourself, I want more of this, you got the 3-hour movie ready for you.
Options are always good.
Yep.
Choices are always appealing to gamers. More
Mhm.
choices, more better.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, have a good
Well,
night, everyone. Like,
good night.
comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And we're going to be rating Dylan Burns. So go say hi to
Oh,
Dylan. Tell him
if you're doing
Tachyon
here,
sent you. Good to see y'all.
tell them Hippy Dippy sucks.
Good night.
Bye.